All right, hello museum families and welcome to RBCM at Home Kids, a play date through screens across British Columbia and the world. The previous sessions, which there are many, there are 50 plus sessions, are all recorded and you could find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page. My name is Chris O'Connor and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. And I invite you to, because families are joining from all over British Columbia and beyond. So invite you to take a moment just to think about the land that you're on as well and those connections to the land. So the period of May 1st to May 16th is known as Science Odyssey. And it's a time where organizations across Canada celebrate Canadian achievements in science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, all in order to build a stronger science culture in Canada. So today we are part of this effort. And because of that, I wanted to invite on someone who's an extraordinary science educator. And who works in an organization that's doing really important science work, particularly around oceans. So Lauren Hudson is the K-12 education coordinator at Ocean Networks Canada. We are so happy to have you on, Lauren, so welcome.
Oh, thank you. About a little bit of building me up, Chris.
Oh, I was like, I could write like pages and pages of how you're just awesome, Lauren, and what ONC does is great. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to do an activity today, but I first want to, do you want to tell us a little bit about like what is Ocean Networks Canada?
Sure, you bet. Ocean Networks Canada is an initiative of the University of Victoria, and we operate a number of cabled scientific observatories in the ocean. So that's a whole bunch of big words, but basically it means we're collecting information about the oceans all the time with not musical instruments, but scientific instruments. And those instruments tell us all sorts of different kinds of information. So we're getting information about the temperature of the ocean, the depth of the ocean, sounds in the ocean. These are all really, really important things to help us understand what's happening there, because scientists estimate that only 8 to 10% of the ocean has been explored. So you may have even heard that we know more about outer space than we do about our oceans. And I would agree, but the Ocean Networks Canada, one of our roles, one of our main goals is to try to help us know more about the ocean. And then that makes us feel better and more confident when we're making decisions about what to do, how to manage the ocean, how to take care of the ocean. And we can only do that really well when we know about it. So #know the ocean. That's kind of what we're all about.
So that sounds it's really important, and it also sounds really fun that you're making discoveries and making gaining new knowledge about what's happening in the ocean every day, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things that I want people to maybe take away with is that it's not me at Ocean Networks and my colleagues that are doing these discoveries. It's scientists around the world. It's citizen scientists, so people like folks joining us right now, they are also contributing to this new understanding of the ocean. So anyone can get the data that's being collected by the instruments we have. And in fact, we've had 14-year-olds make discoveries with the video cameras and say, hey, I observed this weird thing happening at the bottom of the ocean. And I was watching one of your cameras and this fish got slurped up and I didn't know what ate it. Well, it turns out this citizen scientist, this youth, discovered something that we hadn't seen before. So there's opportunities for you to discover the ocean yourself.
Oh. And we put a link to Ocean Networks Canada's website. that has some of those. But I know you're going to share. Your screen too.
Yes. Yeah. Would you like me to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, what we're going to do today is I'm going to kind of explore with you some of the lesser known creatures in the ocean. And I'm going to be using a word, organism. So organism is basically just any living thing that's in the ocean. And we are going to start off by talking about these organisms. Okay, so I think I'm sharing my screen now. And I've just got two monitors going, so I might be looking up a little bit, but it's just so I can make sure I can see what slide you're seeing. So what's for dinner is what we're going to talk about today. And I will just acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory the university stands. It's the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanix peoples whose historical relationship with the land continues to this day. And like Chris, I'm also working from home on these traditional territories. So what I want you to do, and you can feel free to put them in the chat, I want you to think of some living things or organisms that are in the ocean. So what kinds of living things can you think of that are in the ocean? Just going to go to the chat and read out some of the things that I see. Someone's typed in octopus, orca, plankton, sea otter, anemone, fish, dolphin, sharks, crabs, blue tangfish, dragonfish, otters, whales. Oh my goodness, Chris.
So many things.
You didn't tell me this group was so smart. I think coral, seaweed, sea sponge. Oh my goodness. Such great things. So what we like to say is diversity. So what you're sharing with me is how the ocean is diverse or different. And you're right. I'm so impressed with all of the different things and actually some unexpected things that you shared with me. Algae. So that's great. Thanks so much. We can put a pause on that for now.
Someone said a horse.
Maybe meant seahorse.
Yeah, maybe. Or like sometimes animals on the land wander into the ocean a little bit, but you usually wouldn't find a horse in the ocean.
No. So one of the things, Chris, that I was really surprised about is that folks mentioned some algae, and I was not expecting it. So today, what I wanted to do is highlight some friends that we find in the ocean that we might not often think about. So this is a krill, and krill are a type of zooplankton. And zooplankton form one of the lower trophic levels. And that's all scientific words of saying one of the lower things, or in what I like to think, one of the most important things that forms the base of a food chain. So I don't think anyone put krill in there, but they are very important, and all of their zooplankton friends. Algae. I did see algae in the chat, and Chris, I was so surprised to see that because some people don't know that it's a living organism. And some people might not realize that it's a really important part of any food chain in the marine system. So I'm really, really impressed with the folks for noting that today. There's also kelps. Like the algae, the kelps are a really important part of the marine food chains. And this one. Now, these are super special. This particular picture, diatoms, they're a type of phytoplankton. So all of the things that are circled in red right now, all of those things are what we call producers. And the producers in a marine food chain and a food chain on land make up with this bottom of the food chain. So if you didn't have producers, you wouldn't have anything else in the food chain, because the phytoplankton, the algae, and the kelps, they make the food for the zooplankton. The zooplankton makes the food for the next level of organisms, which makes the food for the next level of organisms, and up it goes. So it's really important that we take care of and we know about this food chain. And now if you take a deep breath in with me, and take one more. The neatest thing is that at least one full breath that you just took of those 2 breaths is made by producers in the ocean. So we need algae and kelps and producers in the ocean, even for us, even though it's that there's that connection outside of the food chain piece as well. So we're gonna fly to the Arctic now. Ocean Networks Canada has an installation in Cambridge Bay and Nunavut. And I'm going to use this food chain as an example of just how important this algae is. So as you can see, the algae and the plankton make the base of this food chain. They are the producers. And then our first consumers are the krill. And then we have the Arctic cod that eats the krill. And then the leopard seeds eat the cod. And the polar bear eats the leopard seals. And when we put many food chains together, we have what's called a food web. Because it's not just seals that will eat the cod, and it's not might eat the leopard seals. We even have orcas sometimes that are found in Arctic regions, and they eat those. So when we have multiple food chains together, we make a food web. We're not going to focus too much on that right now. We're going to focus on this idea of producers, consumers, and then when the consumers die, we actually have a third thing. I wonder if anyone in the chat could put what the third thing might be to finish kind of this cycle of energy. We'd call it an energy cycle. So the energy of the producer gets eaten by the consumer. And there's one other really important thing. When a consumer dies, what happens to the consumer? And someone in the chat has it. You got it, a decomposer. So decomposers are going to be, they can be a number of different creatures. Often it can be bacteria. And it can also be sea stars and crabs, and they break down that energy from those big producers. And scavengers, yes, you got that. So we call those all together, the scavengers and the bacteria and stuff, we call those together decomposers. And they make sure that that energy cycles and stays in that food chain. And that's so, so important, because I got to tell you folks, there's no trash heap for the earth. Everything that's here on the earth is here forever. And that energy just continues to cycle. It's so neat. I just love cycles. We've got life cycles and bicycles, and anything with the word cycle is just neat, because it is this idea of what's here circles back. And it's the same thing with food.
And also it makes it feel like that each part is equally important too, which is nice.
Yeah, it is true. And so when we're talking about this food chain, we're going to have our producers. Oh, I think I even have a slide. Let me go to that. I will go to it here. We've got our producers, our consumers, and our decomposers. So remember, our producers are algae and kelps. Our consumers can be tiny little things like zooplankton or zooplankton, to larger things like cod and seals and orcas. And then our decomposers are those scavengers and the bacterias that break things down, and which then becomes that energy for the next round of cycling. So one of the important things, one more important thing I should say about all of this talk about food, is that the producers are really, really important. So I really like to think of it as a pyramid. So when we have our producers, they form this base, and I've said that a couple of times now, they form this base of a food chain. And we need to have lots and lots and lots and lots of producers so that the krill have lots of food to eat. And then we've got quite a lot of krill. And then we've got fish that will eat the krill, but we have usually more krill than we will of fish. And then we'll have fewer seals because those seals need to feed on multiple fish, right? And then finally we have our apex predator, and in this image, it's the orca. But it can be a whole bunch of different things depending on the chain you have. But the
So Lauren, I'm sorry, we have one question from Bella. Says, what do algae eat?
Oh, that's so great. And I'm so glad you stopped me because I didn't explain that very well. Algae get their energy through a special process called photosynthesis. So you can think of the word, break it down with me, photo, like light, that's what it means, and synthesis, which is a fancy way of saying making. So it's making or synthesizing from light. So that's why it is the base of the food chain. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to mention that, Chris. I'm so grateful for our comment, our question in there. So we have the energy from the sun gets changed inside these producers and turned into food. So sugars and waters, and actually the oxygen is part of that reaction as well.
And then, Lauren, there was another question on the other end of things. Owen asked, what if decomposers die?
If a decomposer dies, guess what? There's another decomposer out there to eat it. So we have to have, that's why it's really neat. We've got this perfect balance in the ocean. If there's not interruption or disruption from humans, the food chain in the ocean is balanced. And we need to respect that and do a really good job of trying to keep that balance that nature already has. And I think the other thing about that is that about the photosynthesis is that on land that happens as well. So today we're diving into the ocean, but this idea of producers, consumers, and decomposers, and producers making their food from the sun, that also happens. And maybe someone in the chat can share, what are our producers on land called? What takes energy from the sun and converts it into energy for that organism to grow and live? Aha, like instantaneous, Chris, right in the chat, someone's got it. Plants. And so plants are going to feed larger organisms. And then those organisms are going to be eaten by another organism. So if you eat meat, a food chain on land might be grass and a cow and then a human. So you have your producers and then two types of consumers. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, your food chain would be plants and then a human. And so we need that energy from the sun in order to create the food that we eat. So all of the things that people put in the chat earlier about what their favorite foods are, you can think of the different consumers or producers that were part of those favorite foods that you like to eat. So that is, our kind of the idea of how energy flows, and we get back to that idea of a cycle. So that is, that's a little bit about the idea of producers, consumers, and decomposers. And the activity that we're going to do today is we are going to make a little spinner. So we kind of can play around with this idea of producers, consumers, and decomposers. So this is when I'm going to get you to get your materials out. Yeah, someone likes macaroni and cheese. We definitely have some. We're going to have some producers in there.
And Jenny will put the supplies that are needed. Again, yeah, she just put it up in the chat in the comment section. So.
And one thing, folks, I forgot is I forgot to mention that a ruler could be handy. a ruler might be handy. So if you have something that you can use for a ruler, that'd be great.
And just a reminder to everyone that if you don't have these supplies, don't worry about it. Just stay with us. And this will be recorded, so you could always go back and do this after the fact as well. So
yeah. So Chris,
do you want to stop sharing your screen, Lauren, so we can see?
That would probably be helpful.
Great.
I went in and did that for you, so you're good to go.
Great.
Oh, now
you're all ready, Lauren.
It's all good. I'm not sharing anymore.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So thanks for that help, Jenny. So I am going to use a piece of paper today. And I like to use paper that I can recycle. So I've got a piece here that has something else written on the back, but it's perfectly great on this side. And I'm going to trace a circle. Now I've got a bowl here, nice large bowl. And I'm going to use my pencil. And I'm going to trace the outline of the circle on my piece of paper. So I think you can see that now. All right. I'll give you just a moment to get your circle drawn. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be the rough shape of a circle. And then with a ruler, and I can even demonstrate with, a book or something like that. So just something straight and flat. Here we go. I've even got a book just to be it as an example. You can you want to go roughly around halfway across that circle and go right there.
I like your STEMinist sticker as well.
Yeah, it's a good sticker.
Yeah.
And you see, it's not perfect. I didn't get right in the middle of the circle. That's okay. I'm going to go back to my ruler now because I have it here. So I've got my circle with a line across it. And I'm going to make another line going the other way. So I've got a kind of 4 sections in my circle right now. I'm going to continue to divide this circle up into 16 sections. And I'll show you how I do this. I'm going to do a couple of examples without a ruler, just to show you that it's easy to do without a ruler as well. So I'm going to estimate where halfway up in my circle is. And I'm going to go across those big 4. And then I'm going to rotate. And I've got the larger 2 pieces here, and I'm going to split those in half as well. Cool thing about a circle, which makes me think of a cycle, is that they always go through the center here. Okay, so now I've got, count with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I said I was going to make 16. Now, because I love math, I know that if I split 8 up, or these 8 pieces up each once, then I'm going to double it. I'm going to have 16. So I need to split each of these pieces up in half. So there we go.
And of course, we're talking about food, so this makes me think of pie.
Yeah.
And a piece for 16 people at a party. Excellent.
And you could have a piece for 15 people, and the 15th person, it's their birthday and they get the largest.
Oh yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah. It was just my birthday on the weekend, so.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm thinking all about birthdays.
Yeah, for sure.
So now I've got 16 slices. And you're probably thinking, what in the world does this have to do with food chains? Well, producers, remind me, what are our producers, Chris? Producers are the?
Algae, the krill.
Well, yep, almost. The algae and the kelps and the phytoplankton. The krills
Right.
our first type of consumer, but so close there, Chris. So we've got.
I was thinking krill because we have a question from Valeria. Is the krill that was in the picture, are they the same ones that you can adopt in the pet shop?
Oh my goodness. I'm not too sure. I think like maybe they're thinking of like sea monkeys.
Oh yeah.
And I think sea monkeys, you know what, I'd have to fact check there, but I believe they are a type of zooplankton. And I believe they are yeah, I believe they are, sea monkeys are a type of krill. I'd have to fact check that one.
Right.
Okay, so producers. So I've got 16 spots here, and I know that that base of the food chain has to have lots and lots of producers to be able to feed all of the other levels of organisms in our cycle or our food chain. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick at random 8 spots where I'm going to have producers. So I'm going to do P for producers. I'm going to go 1, 2, just at random, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Because so kids can put those down, those P's wherever they
want.
Right. Yeah,
you got it. Now, now I also know that consumers, we have lots of different kinds of consumers that rely on those producers. So I'm going to put 4 consumers in here, and I'm going to use C to be my consumer. So I'm going to label 4 of these pieces of pie consumer with a C. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can't forget our decomposers because they help that energy cycle through the whole food chain. And I'm going to put 4 decomposers. And I'm going to use the letter D for decomposer because decomposer starts with D. We're getting a full school. We've got math today, Chris.
Yeah, it's whole Science Odyssey.
Yeah, and we've got literacy as well. So so here's one that I made before because I had a little bit of extra time. I put some color on it. Just to make it clear. So I've got, I picked certain colors for a certain reason. I picked green for the producers, although not all producers are green, right? We have brown kelps and they produce energy as well for our food chain. But I picked green.
Sort of think of green as producers, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I thought of it. And then consumers are picked as blue, and decomposers, they're breaking things down, I think of as brown. So I've got my 4 colors there. You can color yours up a little bit later. Now this is where things get exciting, if it's not already exciting enough. We have you were asked to grab a paperclip. And
I just wanted to say, Lauren, that we're at 11:30 now. Hopefully people can stay a little bit after our time, 11:30. If you do need to leave, just know that we are recording this and you could come back to it. But hopefully you can stay with us. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Chris. Thanks for that time. I have my computer angled so I can't see the
Yeah.
Okay, so for this part, and I won't be too much longer. For this part, you want to take your paperclip, and I said 2 paperclips just in case one breaks, which sometimes happens. So if you take your paperclip, one end of it, and you open it up like that, you end up getting a little pointer. So I'm going to bring back my colored one because it might show up a little bit better. And if that breaks, you've got your second paperclip. If you don't need it, put it back so it can be used for other things. We're not going to waste anything here. We're going to put our pencil, hook the pencil into the looped part. I think I'm showing that okay. Into the loop part of the spinner. And then you put it in the middle where all of those lines intersected. There's another math term for you. And what we can do is you flick it or spin it around. And if you did 10 spins, math again, I would love you to try to take a tally mark of how many times you land on the P, the C, or the D. So I just landed on D. So I'm going to do producers, consumers, and decomposers. I'll do a little tally mark. So a tally mark is just like one little slash there. Oh, turn it around, and I landed on a P for producer. So I'm making a tally count. Chris, do you have a prediction of what I'm going to land on next?
Maybe another P.
And I did. There we go. Okay. And here we go. Next spin.
Now I think, I was going to say D actually.
Okay, D. Okay, how about you give me one more guess and I'll wait before I spin.
I think a C, because it's about time. Oh, wow, I'm pretty good at this.
So out of 5 spins, I landed on producer twice, consumer once, and decomposer twice.
Mm.
So I encourage you to give your spinner a try and see what you land on.
KE said that they got C, maybe on their first turn.
Right.
So when you're doing that, it makes me think about that. As a scientist, you make certain predictions of what you think might happen, and then you test it out. And a lot of what Ocean Networks Canada does is doing tests or like studies to see what data comes in, what numbers come in that helps tell a bigger story. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really, Chris, it's about that scientific method, right?
Yeah.
So a scientist is going to make a hypothesis. They say, well, we've noticed that up in the Arctic, for example, we've talked to community members and they have stories in their Inuit communities about how the ice has changed. And they can talk about, now not just stories, lived experience. We don't hunt the same way we used to. And so they are observing changes in the ocean. And so if we put an instrument up there that's measuring the thickness of the ice, we could make a hypothesis. We've heard stories that, and we know from people who live there that their hunting practices have changed. We hypothesize that we're going to see changes in the sea level, the sea ice, how thick it is, and also when it freezes up and when it starts to thaw again. And sure enough, we've been observing up in Cambridge Bay. Oh, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think 8 years now, it might be 9. And we have seen changes in that sea when the sea ice forms and when it melts. And so that hypothesis from 2 perspectives is shown to be true.
It's so important for sure. Alexa said that they got P 8 times, C 1 time, and D 1 time, which is interesting. Yeah. And I imagine if you're starting to see that there's not enough P's, like you were talking about that pyramid, if there's less P's and too many of other things, then that starts to like create the imbalance.
Definitely.
Yeah. You
bet. So we have to keep that in mind about our food chains.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
And the last thing I was going to share is that there is now, since in the 1970s, a ecosystem in the deep sea was discovered, and it breaks all of the rules.
Oh, yeah.
So we think that the sun is the most important thing in all of these food chains, and all of the energy on Earth comes from the sun, and all of the food webs, which are stacked up versions of food chains, it all depends on the sun and those producers. Well, here's just to flip it all upside down, because science likes to do that. The discovery of hydrothermal vents. made scientists change their opinion. So there are food chains that exist with different types of producers, and food chains that rely on bacteria, in fact.
So that wheel might look very different in that environment.
Definitely. So we have a different form, different base of the food chain, and it's chemosynthetic bacteria, just to throw out one big fancy word there.
We're getting so much great data from our young scientists as attendees. So Asher is 4 Ps, 2 Cs, and 0 Ds. KE got all Ps. Chloe got 3 Ps, 2 Cs, and 0 Ds.
Interesting.
Nicole, 3 Cs, 1 D, and 1 P. So yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much, Lauren. Like data is very exciting, just to be able to like gather information. And I love that way of sort of understanding the ocean through these 3 levels of the food chain, the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. So thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us today and giving us a little window both into like the ocean in that way, but also science in the way that one of the ways that we understand the ocean. So
great. Well, charge forth and make sure that you remember those producers, because they're an important part of our ecosystem.
And also remember that you're an important part of science too out there. So like your example, Lauren, of the 14-year-old who made an observation from the video. So thanks everyone. We'll see you next week. So glad you were able to join us today. So glad you were able to join us, Lauren, here today. So bye everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.